All right. So, this is a Fine Wine and Good Spirits pick of the Penelope Barrel Strength, which, as pops up in a previous video, we really liked the non-store pick. So this is slightly lower proof at 114.6. Yeah, 114.6. They actually have somewhat of a breakdown of where this is coming from. And it does have the age, and it does point out the marvelous fact that this is not chill filtered.
I'm excited.
So, as am I. And I've
it's also 4 years based on what we read.
Correct.
The standard one isn't. I don't think the standard one was this old.
3.5 to 4.5.
Okay.
So it might be this old, might be slightly older, might be slightly younger. Does not smell like it's only 4 years.
No. I mean, it has a little bit of like breadiness to it from youth, but like it also has a good bit of wheated bourbon in it, so.
Right, so distinguishing where that's actually coming from.
And again, like I remember saying that the original Penelope had that bready note to it, but this it's in a good way.
Mm-hmm. It almost like, because it's again, this is a pretty sweet nose.
Yes, it is.
The fact that it has a little bit of that breadiness, and the sweetness is like a brown sugary, I almost get a little bit of cinnamon. The way I kind of describe it is, if I had to describe the nose in one description, that would be French toast.
That's actually a good way to put it. I think I might agree with that. Because we said that, didn't we say that the original Penelope had like a Annie Ann's cinnamon pretzel nose? Yeah, this one's a little bit more, I don't want to say rich, but like more, it's darker.
Right.
It's darker. But yeah, I could definitely see
I definitely would go with the French toast nose on this.
A little bit of maple, a little bit of cinnamon, a little bit of bread, a little bit of all that, yeah.
The only thing it's missing is the butter pad on top.
Oof. Yeah, it's definitely sweet on the front and then dries as it goes on.
But it's not like the Bourbon. It does not get as dry as that Bourbon.
No. This is not as dark as that Bourbon. This is far sweeter than Bourbon in general.
Not that that's like trying to compare the two to begin with, because those are very different whiskeys and very different proofs to compare.
Yes.
And very different mash bills.
I feel like this one's a little bit hotter than the standard Penelope.
Well, this one also, yeah, I could kind of see that.
But, so, I would say I have to agree. The front end is sweeter, darker, more brown sugar, more maple, more dark flavors than the standard Penelope barrel strength.
While still keeping sweetness.
Yes. It transitions and definitely dries out as it goes on. Like, it's complex in the same way that...
I still get like a creamy note on the finish, along with that drier notes.
It's like I can't tell if it's like creamy bread, vanilla, or just...
That's kind of what I was getting.
But I know
it's
what
not
you're
like the
talking
super
about.
creamy vanilla like we get out of some of like the Knob 12 Cask or anything like that. It's not like that. But I don't even want to say it's necessarily reminiscent, because it's not like it's that similar.
Mm-hmm.
But that's sort of the idea it was going for.
Right. Yeah, I don't know what is the best way to describe that note. Because, I mean, it goes from that French toast, maple, brown sugar sweetness. Definitely picks up more tobacco, more leather, but still retains some sweetness. And then there is that creaminess on the finish that, like, rounds it all out. And I don't...
It's almost like there's your butter pat on the French toast.
Maybe?
But it's not like a buttery taste.
You want to know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of bread pudding.
I could see that. I could definitely see it being almost like a pudding note.
Yeah, I want to say like
It's definitely a little more complex than the non-pick was.
yeah, it's definitely more complex. I want to say there's creme brulee on the finish too, like a little bit of burnt, caramely, sweet creaminess.
Mm-hmm. And that's sort of what those sweeter notes are. What lingers in the finish.
Mm.
Although most, the finish, it's definitely a little bit on the drier end, but the drier notes kind of dissipate while the sweeter notes last a little longer.
I think so. Yeah, this is really good.
Yeah. And knowing how much all of us liked the non-store pick batch 6 cask strength of this, when I was giving this one as high a praise as I was, it was definitely warranted.
Yeah. So here's my thing about Penelope, though. I don't know if I want to keep buying it further down the road. And the reason I say that is that this is sourced from NGP.
Mm-hmm.
Not only would they start to make their own whiskey, like after weaning themselves off of MGP, MGP also has a new distiller, because the distiller for MGP is the distiller for Old Oak. He left MGP to start Old Oak.
That does explain why I did like the Old Oak a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, funny story. People don't know whether to call Old Elk sourced or not, because
it's the dude from MGP, but it's not.
It's his own whiskey. He just took it to another state. There's actually like
I wouldn't call it sourced, honestly.
People are confused about whether they should call Old Elk sourced or not. They really have no idea.
I would say no, personally, because I can't call it sourced if it's his whiskey. He's making it.
I think
and
that
he's bottling it as the name.
I think I can only retroactively call it sourced, because I want to see if current batches taste very different from batches that are distilled in Colorado.
Fair.
Because if the distillation in Colorado tastes distinctly different than the batches that were from MGP in Indiana, yeah, I'll call the original batches sourced.
Yeah.
But if there's no difference because their head distiller probably knows what he's doing, I probably would never call it sourced at that rate.
Yeah. But that's why we can sit here and enjoy these while these last.
So my question for you is, what is your favorite MGP product that you've tried so far?
We talking rye and bourbon?
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie. I think this.
You think it's this?
I think so. Although I don't know. I do really like the Old Scout store picks I've had.
I'll have to try this. Well, we will be trying it, but I do want to compare it to the Old Scout pick. But honestly, if I had to say anything that came out of MGP, I'd have to say it was the Old Scout Single Barrel Rye.
I do put that up there.
And I say that because it's an unadulterated, I think it's the least adulterated MGP rye that exists, because it's cask strength, it's single barrel, and Old Scout obviously doesn't really do much with their stuff aside from just age it a little bit longer. Like, they buy it, they age it, and then they sell it.
Right.
So I feel like the Old Scout single barrel rye that I
think for ryes, I would put that as my number one.
Yeah.
But since I have to include the bourbon and ryes together, I actually do think that I would probably say this Penelope, the Old Scout rye, the other Penelope, and then the Old Scout picks I've had.
Is that including High West?
Yes.
Okay.
I do like and High West. I won't include the Fumé Blanc finish one, because that one is like, it was too different for me to really call, like, it doesn't feel like an MGP whiskey to me, because they
the finish
did that
plays
interesting
so much.
finishing. Yeah.
I also want to.
I would put Midwinter Act 8 Scene 3 up there though, because I do love that sour apple note.
I don't regret trading it away for an FAE-01 and an Up Creek 9.
Yeah. I mean, I don't blame you. I know you didn't like it as much as I did, but...
It was too hot. Like, honestly, I don't know what High West does to the whiskey, but for some reason, it's MGP, but it's hot as a motherfucker.
Keep in mind the climate. Because if they do anything to it, it's in a much hotter climate than Indiana.
Yeah, I'm just trying to...
It might be that, like, Texas whiskey effect, where...
I have a feeling it's different than the Texas whiskey effect, because Texas whiskey isn't very spicy and hot.
That's fair.
Like,
but you're also talking an MGP high rye bourbon. Or MGP rye.
Yeah,
that is aged in a similar sort of setting.
Yeah, I don't know. I would love to, like, understand...
Like High West has a lot of variables going into it.
I would
makes them really interesting. But
yeah, I'd love to talk to a master distiller from anywhere who could explain.
We did just get the Rendezvous Rye in, actually.
Oh, the new Rendezvous Rye. Because that's purely Utah distilled now too, isn't it? Yeah. I won't buy it, but I will definitely...
My buddy's going to buy it, so I'm sure I'm going to get a sample of it.
I'm very interested in trying it, but...
And he might join us for a tasting, so you might get to try it too.
Absolutely.
Because it's 70 like it was before, but... Yeah, that I'm excited to try. And I do want to try a Boo Rye at one point.
Oh, yeah.
I tried the Campfire. I actually liked it.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, it's... I would have to say that the Campfire is probably the best thing I've tasted from them, just because the Scotch, like the smoke from the Scotch, dials in the heat a little bit.
I can agree.
The only
it was by far the least hot High West I've had, aside from the Fumé Blanc finish, because that removed a lot of the heat too.
I would say that that's probably my favorite solely because it took out most of the heat from High West.
Right.
Because again, I don't know what it is, but High West stuff is just so hot that it makes it hard for me to enjoy it.
Right.
And like, I could taste in Midwinter's Night why people like it so much, and I wanted to like it, but the heat on it just took away so much from that whiskey for me personally.
Right.
That being said, I'm going to buy it again as soon as I get the opportunity to
because of the trade value.
Yeah, that probably is the best trade value of anything I've seen.
And they don't just hold their value, they go up.
Yeah, like I traded an open bottle of it for FAE-01 before it was released in PA, and then I still got a kicker with it.
Right. We've been getting some good trades.
Yeah. Yeah.
But back to the Penelope for just a moment. This store pick blows the non-pick out of the water, I think. For me.
My opinion, I have a hard time comparing them because they're just that different. It's like, to me, it's like the Maker's Mark selections we did.
I can see that.
Because this one is so much different than that one. Like, the other one was just so much Annie Ann's pretzel that, like, I really liked that. But this is so many more complex, rich bourbon notes that...
But it still, again, has that sort of cinnamony, almost doughy note, but it again transitions into a more, instead of like a desserty sweetness, it's more of like a rich, decadent sweetness on this one.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the best way to, like, characterize the difference between them and, like, how much different they split down the middle. I would say the best way to put it is like vanilla and chocolate ice cream.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to put it. Like, they're both very different. One is definitely more robust than the other, but they both have their own qualities that make people want to say, I like this better, I like this better.
Which is how this is for me, where that again, sort of, not to oversimplify, but calling it that French toast sort of nose. And at the very beginning of the palate, that was like, not something I ever expected out of a whiskey, but now that I know there's a whiskey that has it, I'm glad I have the whiskey that has those notes.
Yeah, because the next store pick you get probably ain't going to do the same thing.
I know, and that's why this is a bottle that will be drank very conservatively.
Speaking of store picks, did you see that they have a different store pick on the website for special order?
flavors?
Yeah. I might order that. I'm not sure yet.
I was tempted if I had the money. I probably honestly would have on the spot, but
I want to see what the stave selection is because Fine Wine and Good Spirits did not pick this one. Somebody else picked it, and I think that they bought the leftover stock.
it was like Laura Brown or something.
It's like Martha Brooks,
Martha
Brown,
Brooks.
something like that.
Martha Brown.
Probably
Laura
Martha
Bush.
Brown.
Laura Bush. Laura!